Why hello there, dear viewer. Back for more after that grueling business with the Indoraptor last week? Well, as luck would have it, it came with a buck T-Rex that was missing its feet. But we're going to do a little bit more than just replace the feet. We're also going to replace the head. Why? Well, because I have a better head at my disposal. And we want to make this the best extreme chomping T-Rex that it can be. Naturally, the first part of that is heating up and peeling off his original face. Nothing morbid about that. The top part of the head came off easy enough, but the bottom jaw required a little bit more convincing. But eventually I was able to negotiate its surrender. Once that pesky original head is completely removed, it's time to work on the eyes. And these eyes are a little bit different from ones that you may have seen before. They have the details sculpted in. So once they're base coated in yellow, putting in all the details like the pupils and veins should be a pretty simple matter. We'll start by giving it a chestnut wash. Once that's done, we'll just hit the pupil with some black paint. And since the pupil's sculpted in, it should be difficult for me to mess up. And now that the pupil is painted in, we're going to hit this with some clear UV resin. This is gooey stuff, so don't get it on your fingers. Once that resin's applied, we just hit that sucker with a UV light for a few minutes, and chemistry does the rest. Thank you, chemistry. That's a nice looking eye. Okay, back to the task at hand. This guy needs feet. Now we could just put the factory Mattel feet back on, or we can put some rescaled Marco Makes Red Rex replacement feet on it. Tough decision, I know. Anyways, the first step is super glue. Copious amounts of super glue. Once the feet are glued on, we'll just replace the original pieces at the bottom of the leg. And while I didn't catch it on camera, I took additional steps to make sure that those feet stay on there. Now, I scaled down a Hammond Collection replacement Buck Rex head for this guy to 85%, and it's gonna look awesome, but it does require some fitting, because it wasn't made for the Extreme Chompin' Rex. So a little snipping and sanding did occur off camera. But probably the most important part on fitting this head is Milliput, our very favorite handy-dandy 2-part epoxy putty. So we'll just knead both parts together until it reaches a uniform consistency and color, and then put them where we need additional material, which in this case is in the lower jaw. And then I'm also going to throw some super glue in there because, well, super glue is super stuff. And now we'll just do the same thing for the top part of the head. Alright, new head, new feet, good as new. But let's make them better than new. One of those features that sets the buck apart from the doe is a larger throat. And Mattel didn't sculpt that on there, so we're going to. The first step in that is heating up that middle part of the neck. This is going to make it pliable so we can stick the back end of a paintbrush in there and, well, deform it a little bit, or reform it. This little change is going to help him retain his articulation after we put some new material on for his throat. And it'll also hopefully help make it look like it was supposed to be there all along. We really don't want our modded dinosaurs to look like they were modded. We really just want them to look like they always looked nice, even though they didn't. So once the basic shape is down with the Milliput, I just use the back end of a paintbrush as well as a toothpick to just continue on with the shapes and everything from the other piece of the neck and hopefully get it all blended in and make it look like it's supposed to be there. While I'm doing this, it's good to do an articulation check. After all, I'm trying to make this figure better, not impede its articulation and make it less good. Well, now that I'm happy with it, I just gotta sit back and let that Milliput cure. Now that it's cured, I'm going to go in and paint the eyeliner on this buck. Usually I do this on the Hammond Collection Rexes before installing the eyes, but I didn't this time because of all the fitting that was required with the head. So we're doing it now. And now we're just going to mask those beautiful eyes off so we don't destroy them while we repaint the rest of this thing. And the first color we're going to throw down is a yellow-green color. And it's not going to look quite that vibrant once it dries. Rex looks like he was chowing down on the predator.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Alright, well now that that yellow-green is on there, let's put some more yellow-green on there. Because when it comes to yellow-green, it's both green and yellow. And we need more of it on the Rex. Once it has been sufficiently yellow-greened, we can move on to another color. Eventually. But we should probably be thorough with the coverage on this so we don't have to go back and do more later. Alright, time for some warm buff. Finally. And we're just going to give it a nice coat of warm buff all down the underbelly, all the way down the tail, and on the backs of the legs. Did I mention I'm using the dinosaur style guide to paint this guy? Because I am. If you want your dinosaurs to have style, then I highly recommend using the guide. As overboard as I may have gone with the yellow-green, I think I'm going just as overboard with the warm buff. Or if you're a glass half full kind of guy, I'm being thorough. Although I think we're nearly done with this. Just the color, not the full repaint. The next color is English Ivy Green. Although I really think it should be called the Lost World Buck Tyrannosaurus Rex Green, as it seems like 90% of my application for that paint is on the Lost World Buck Tyrannosaurus Rexes. And I mean, just look at that green. It's Buck Tyrannosaurus Rex Green. And you can't convince me otherwise. Actually, maybe you can. I'm susceptible to bribery. Well, I think he is starting to shape up to look like a Buck Tyrannosaurus Rex. A naked Buck Tyrannosaurus Rex. Buck naked, haha! Anyways, let's go ahead and give him some patterns and stripes because that is the Tyrannosaurus Rex equivalent of clothes. We'll just start by painting the eyebrows black and then painting the scales continuing back from the eyebrows black as well. And to do that, we're using a toothpick. This part is really tedious, but it's also the part that really makes him look like a Buck T-Rex. Well, one of the parts. There's a lot of parts. The good thing about painting this replacement head as opposed to the original head is that there is no shortage of individual scales to pick out and paint. How Marco sculpts so many scales on one model without going insane is a mystery to me. Because just painting those scales, I feel the grip on my sanity is slipping. Whoops, I almost forgot to paint a couple more scales. What a horrible almost tragedy. I guess I'll go back and paint those scales. Man, this thing better look awesome when I'm done with it. We're going to take a small break from painting scales and do those snoot stripes. When you are painting Buck Tyrannosaurus Rex snoot stripes, or any snoot stripes for that matter, it's important to make sure that you have your paint watered down to the right consistency so that it will flow over the model and not leave you with big, thick, nasty, ugly stripes that don't have a neat little point. Because without a neat little point, are they really snoot stripes at all? Or just blotches? I say blotches. Now we're going to take a short hiatus from painting the head and paint these beautifully sculpted foot scoots. There's an awful lot of detail sculpted all over this Extreme Chompin' T-Rex, but when it gets to the original Mattel feet, it's almost like it was $4.50 and they had to punch out at $5, so they just said, nah, and that's why I replaced them. Because we want to make this the best Extreme Chompin' T-Rex that we can. And because I'm still tired of painting the face, we're going to go ahead and mark out the stripes now. Once the positions of the stripes are marked out, we'll actually paint the stripes themselves. And we are still using black. And the reason we're using black is there's a lot of paint that's still going to go over this. And we don't want those stripes completely obscured. A little bit obscured is good. Completely obscured, not so much. So when it comes to painting black stripes on the Buck T-Rex, we shall persevere. Sometimes we'll use a paintbrush, and other times we'll use a toothpick. Particularly when we need those nice sharp lines. And since we've done the left leg, we better also do the right leg so we don't end up with a lopsided dinosaur. Well, now that the obligatory lopsided dinosaur comment is out of the way, we can paint the tail. And surprise, surprise for the tail, we're just going to continue those stripe patterns down the tail. On both sides, of course. Otherwise, you know.
Lopsided dinosaur, lopsided dinosaur, lopsided dinosaur.
Once we're bored with stripes, we're going to go in and add a lot of dots and speckles on and around the stripes. Some of these speckles will be the basis of a marbling effect that we'll see later. Anyways, we're just going to continue speckling this dinosaur for the foreseeable future. So sit back, relax, have a drink, get comfortable, because we have to speckle both sides of the dinosaur. Admittedly, when it comes to the arms, it's kind of a hybrid of striping and speckling, sort of a splotching, I don't know, patterns. I'll catch you guys in the next step. Of course, the next step would be back to the face. This time we are going to take some watered down black and we're going to try to get it as much between those scales up above the end orbital fenestra. Then in a misguided attempt to blend it in, I'm going to take a wet paintbrush and kind of wipe down from there. It'll look good eventually. You know what? Back to the feet. Speckle, speckle, speckle. There is much speckling to be done upon this Rex. Okay, back to the face again. If it seems like I'm jumping around on this Rex a lot, it's because I am. Anyways, we're going to hit some of the face with some pavement in the airbrush, mostly along the front of the snout and the lip line. Not that you can see it thanks to my stellar camera placement. And this is going to help tie in a lot of those individual scales that we painted black earlier. Won't completely obscure them, it'll just obscure them a little bit, and that's what we want. And of course we've got to darken up that eye socket. And now we can start working on those stripes. Remember that marbling effect I was talking about earlier? Well, here we go. I'm basically just tracing a series of speckles that I did on the legs and torso. Don't forget to do both sides. Well, enjoy the marbling, and I'll catch you in the next step. It's starting to come together. Of course, the feet look out of place, so better fix those. I'm just going to spray over those black scoots with either darkened burnt umber or browned black, whichever you prefer. I don't remember the ratio, but dark brown. So dark, much darkness. And now that that's done, we're going to go back to the face, and we're going to hit it with a little bit of khaki. This isn't going to completely obscure the yellow on the antorbital fenestra, it's just going to make it look a little less bright and more natural. It's also going to fade those snoot stripes quite a bit. And I guess I wasn't quite done with that pavement paint either. If only I had been as thorough as I was with the yellow-green and the warm buff earlier. C'est la vie. Well, at long last, he is starting to look very Buck T-Rexy. But he's still missing one very important Buck T-Rex feature. And even Mattel sort of picked up on that feature when they released their second Buck T-Rex. That feature is the yellow stripes. I imagine during pre-production of The Lost World, some guy at Stan Winston Studios said, "Hey, you know it'd be cool if the male T-Rex was green with black stripes. That way we could tell it apart from the female." And then some other guy at Stan Winston Studios said, "You know it'd be even cooler if it had yellow stripes inside of those black stripes." And then Stan Winston and Spielberg said, "Hey, that looks freaking cool," and so now we have the awesome Buck T-Rex that we know and love today. I make no claims as to the historical accuracy of that conjecture. I honestly have no idea what possessed them to put yellow stripes inside of the black stripes on the Buck T-Rex, but it does look cool. Well, anyways, using a variety of tools from paintbrushes to Q-tips, I am painting yellow stripes on this Buck T-Rex. And it takes a few coats because, well, that's just what happens when you paint a lighter color over a darker color. Oh yeah, don't forget to paint his stupid head. And speaking of his stupid head, now I'm going to take some khaki and pick out some more of those scales on his face. On both sides. You know what else we need to paint on his face? The jugal horn. That's just fun to say. Jugalhorn. Ha! Jugalhorn! Ha! Okay, I'm gonna just dry brush this sucker's face now. Mixture of territorial beige and khaki on the big scales over the antorbital fenestra, and territorial beige on the foot scoots. And pavement dry brushing on the eyebrow. And while you cannot see the airbrush in this next part, I am using it to spray a very light coat of English ivy green over the T-Rex's back, and that is going to help and subdue that yellow a little bit and tie it in with the rest of the colors. Another oft overlooked feature of the Buck T-Rex is that he has a little bit of red between his toes on his feet. Very, very little, so I just lightly airbrushed that in. Of course, now I've moved on to the claws. And the claws are being painted in a combination of burnt umber and black, so it is either a very, very dark brown or a very brown black, whatever helps you sleep at night. Another key feature of all Tyrannosaurus rexes is a mouthful of murder bananas, so we are going to paint those now using a combination of white and yellow to get us a nice plaque color. As you can see, some of the fleshy bits on the inside of the mouth got some overspray of green on them. That's unfortunate. We'll take care of that next.
Mouse.
For the inside of the mouth, we're using a combination of metallic red and classic caramel, whatever you call it. And now he's pretty much done. It might be time for a rampage through San Diego. Oh yeah, I forgot to paint the scars on the snout. Whoops. Well folks, that's the end of the video. Thanks for sticking around. If you enjoy my content, be sure to like and subscribe. If you'd like a chance to own whatever I made or painted in this video, be sure to check out my eBay and Etsy shops. And to see other projects that I've made, be sure to follow me on Instagram. I appreciate your support, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.